Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Health is Wealth. I am your host, Shabnam Riaz. How are you, and are you looking after your health, and are you taking sort of heed of all the experts that we get on the show? And we have the chance, it's a privilege and an honor to have so many people who can come on the show, experts who can share their expertise with us. And we're promoting the idea of a preventive medicine, and prevention is better than cure, and that's the thing that we want to do. So today, the subject that we have, we're going to talk about diabetes and the impact of diabetes on the heart and on the mind. In other words, the cardiac and the psychological issues and factors that are at hand there. And as we know that these programs that we go through, there's so much literature out there, there's so many things you can get from the internet. If you have a particular problem or a particular disease, you must be mindful of the fact that there are certain things you should be very careful about, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We are very happy to have with us in the studio Dr. Habibur Rahman, who's a consultant and interventional cardiologist. Dr. Habib, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Likewise. And seated next to Dr. Habib, we have Anam Khan, who's a clinical psychologist and a diabetic counselor. So, Anam, thank you very much for joining us.
So thank you so much for having me here.
Wonderful, likewise. Okay, so as we say, when we start these shows, is that we want to get the maximum information to the people who are watching. So, Dr. Habib, when we talk about a person becoming a diabetic, and especially a person who is recently diagnosed with diabetes, what should they be careful about when it comes to issues of the heart?
Thanks for this opportunity. Actually, diabetes usually is in existence for quite a while. And most people are not mindful of its existence, and they don't recognize the symptoms. But one fine day, we find that the person is diabetic. In one word or two words, what should they be mindful of, or what should they do? Lifestyle change. That's it.
That's it.
Because the commonest type of diabetes, which is the insulin resistance diabetes, is caused by the lifestyle.
Okay, and this is type 2 diabetes we're talking about.
Yeah, well, the typing is changing over time.
Okay.
But basically, there is insulin in the system, and it just doesn't work.
Okay.
There is resistance to it. Insulin level goes up, and the devastating effects of diabetes set in. So, changing lifestyle. And we hear a lot about reversing diabetes, making it disappear.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it as we discuss the topic. But going back, lifestyle modification, really living it the right way. I'm sure the audience and you yourself would be aware that it's in epidemic proportions.
Yes.
So what happened in these 50 or 60 years? I'm a direct witness to it. And if you look at the graphs and statistics, suddenly it seems that everybody is diabetic.
And this is a global concern, or is it something,
Yeah, it's a global phenomenon, but particularly it is painful in the poor countries or developing countries.
True.
Because this was a lifestyle disease. And we haven't caught up with the GDP growth and all the benefits that go with it. But we have certainly imported diabetes en masse, and we are paying for it in many ways.
Excuse me. Okay, so as you said, this was, not really something as a lifestyle. It wasn't something that we were expecting here in our part of the world. So what is the reason for that? Is it the change in lifestyle that many of us have adopted?
It is so subtle and so gradual over the past 5 decades that today's generation doesn't even know what has happened. You know, I can tell you, in my childhood, walking 8 or 10 miles a day was the routine. It wasn't for pleasure. That was just the way it was. Similarly, our women folk, they would go fetch the water, you know, a couple pitchers on the head and climbing the
Very true. Very true.
little ascent to the village and helping along with the chores and the agricultural society, which was the fodder for the animals and milching the cows, and you know, all these were part of routine for men and women.
Right.
And now, just at the flick of a button, you know, you don't
Everything
have
is
to bring
available.
water. You know, you just turn on the tap.
Yeah.
And
You
all-
park straight right in front of the shop that you want to go to. And
Exactly.
if you have your parking a few feet away, even that seems to be such an inconvenience. You're absolutely right.
So it has changed.
slowly
You know,
crept up on
everything
us.
has changed.
True.
And the urban life, and interestingly, even the rural life, it has gone through quite
Very
a dramatic
true, very
change.
true. As you know, as Dr. Habib has said, so many things have just slowly crept up on us. The change in our lifestyles, what we were used to. Okay, and now tell us about your story as well, because you are a type 1 diabetic patient, and type 1, maybe people aren't that familiar with it. Exactly what is it, and when did you find out?
All right, so I would like to take a start from this thing that yes, diabetes is a disease, but what we say is that, like Dr. Saab has said, that this is a lifestyle management.
Right.
So it is in a disability list, but this is not a disability as such. And yes, it is a silent killer, that it can lead you or it makes you vulnerable to a lot of other things. But with the right care, with the right lifestyle management, and with dietary habits and different physical activities, you can control it. So it's not a hindrance sort of a thing if you're going to take care of it.
Right.
So I was diagnosed when I was 26, and that is back in 2015. So one fine morning, I was in coma for 2 days, so it's a bit dramatic. So yes, it was DKA.
Did you have any symptoms before that you were maybe ignoring, and you weren't thinking that there was something too serious?
I was actually, because I was on a strict diet, so I thought that this weight loss and everything, these hunger pangs and mood fluctuations, maybe there's something else to it. So I tried to ignore.
Right.
But this is my family disease, like everyone else has it, but they are type 2. So I'm the only one who's type 1.
Right.
So finally I was in coma for 2 days, and then I recovered from it, and then I got to know that I have this celebrity disease, like Wasim Akram and Fawad Khan, they have it. So yes, that was a bit of shock for me, too much to take at that time. But then I learned my way, like acceptance is the first thing, that you need to accept that my pancreas, they are outside my body. So the difference you were asking about, so like type 2 is that there is some amount of insulin which is being produced in your body, but maybe your body is not utilizing it.
Right.
But in my case, it's like my pancreas are not producing insulin at all.
Right.
So for that matter, I have to rely on artificial insulin, right? So for
Right.
that matter, I use my insulin pen, or there are some other ways too that you can take your insulin. But that basically means that you need to take your insulin shot right before you meal. Every time you take something like pre-meal thing, you have to take it. So for that matter, I keep my pancreas in my bag all the time. So this is what I do. Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay. So we'll get back to you, Anam, and I've got lots of questions waiting for you. Dr. Habib, for our viewers who are a bit confused, because of course the non-medical people, you know, they don't know exactly what each thing functions for. What is the importance of insulin and the insulin levels, and what is it actually doing in our body?
You know, the hormones, whether it is insulin or thyroid or male and female hormones, they are chemicals that circulate in the body. They are in the blood, and they reach every cell in the body.
Right.
You know, insulin gets to the brain cells, it would get to the heart muscle, so it's everywhere in the skeletal muscle.
Right.
And there are very intricate chemical reactions by which insulin would make use of the available energy to every cell.
Right.
So insulin is the main factor that utilizes uh, the source of energy
Okay.
so that we can function. For example, if sugar cannot be utilized by the cell, gradually, you know, the patient, for example, will go into a comatose state.
Because of the
so
sugar buildup, it's not being
sugar
broken
being
down.
too low, or the sugar buildup that builds up acid in the blood and other chemical changes.
Right.
So hormones are critical to utilization of different energy sources in the blood cells.
Right.
So basically, this very complicated chemistry is just thrown off if you don't have
Right.
insulin.
Right.
You know, you have to have insulin.
From somewhere you have to
Yeah,
have that.
you have to replace it if
Right.
it's not there.
Okay.
And if somehow there is resistance, you have to sensitize the body to insulin. So they are insulin
Right.
sensitizers.
Right, and this is something that is not going to go away by itself. You have to seek help. You have to go to a doctor and you have to get it addressed, because so many times that we find that people have a sort of a careless attitude, or a sort of a flippant attitude that, you know, okay, you know, if I start taking this medicine, I'm going to have to continue it for the rest of my life. Now, that is also something that I find
Sorry, I
people
would just
have-
like to
yeah.
add one thing. Like, since I'm going through this thing, and I try to educate people, and I have a support group too. I talked about that is Meeti Zindagi. So we often encounter such kind of parents that they are in denial.
Right.
Since type 1s, they are diagnosed in a very initial age of their life. So
how round about what age are they?
there is no exact age that we can define. That person could be a neonate or someone who is around early adulthood or late adulthood. But yes, type 1, they have early onset.
Oh,
So
right.
yes, they take a lot of time in accepting it, especially their parents, of course, because they being kids don't know what has happened to them.
Of course.
But what happens is that they start taking them to Babaji's and a lot of bhindi pani and everything. They just try out every single thing without recognizing this fact that if their child is not taking insulin, it could be really dangerous.
It could be
fatal to-
life-threatening.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is something they have to accept, that this is something that he has to take. There is no option in it. Actually.
Right. So
Yeah.
parents out there, it's nothing to be overwhelmed about. Yes, it is something that, you know, will make you very concerned, but you have to seek the right help. That is the main thing that we're talking about right now. Dr. Habib, tell us about the, you know, what happens when you're a diabetic. So, you know, they say that diabetes is often the gateway to many other problems if it's left unattended and you're not managing your sugar levels properly. So when we're talking about the heart, we were talking about the arteries as well before we were,
Right.
you know, recording the program. What does a diabetic person have to be careful about?
I think first off, you have to keep your metabolism in check, which is not just the sugar level. You have to watch the amounts of different kinds of fats in the system.
Right. Okay.
And you have to make sure that they are regulated. So, because one effect of diabetes is on arteries. If it damages the arteries of the heart, the end result is a heart attack. Another impact on the heart is what we call as cardiomyopathy, where the heart muscle becomes extremely weak. So it's not due to blockage of arteries. Independent of that, some people, their heart just weakens in the pumping function.
Okay.
But then the same thing, if the arteries of the brain are affected, stroke is the result. And minor strokes, which are not very evident, leading to dementia.
Okay.
Then arteries of the legs, you know, we have seen that
Thrombosis?
people lose a limb, a foot,
Yeah.
and that's because of the devastation of diabetes, which impacts the arteries of the legs.
Right.
Same way, kidney failure, it is the vascular structures and the functioning units of the kidneys, the nephrons, which are knocked out by diabetes. So all these diseases we are talking about, they go back to the chemical imbalance that diabetes causes. So regulating the sugar, regulating the rest of the metabolic functions, physical activity, and as Dr. Anam is saying, you know, mental attitude is a very big factor.
Right.
Because if you have a defeatist mentality,
Right.
you know, even a minor thing will knock you out.
That is so
Absolutely.
true. That is so true.
So depression
Yeah.
and denial and, you know, just looking the other way, that's not going to work.
That's absolutely true. The ostrich in the head, so the ostrich, you know, in the sand syndrome. What about that? Because I think maybe, you know, when you have news about something like that, you just don't want to believe it. The denial factor comes in, and you'd rather, you know, it would just wish itself away. So sometimes people need a wake-up call.
Yeah, they do. Well, in that case, I would like to share my own experience that I took almost a year for that. Like I was taking my shots, I was monitoring my sugar levels, but not that regularly, I'll be very honest. But after that while, I accepted that this is something that I was born with, and this is something that I'm going to survive. I've always been a survivor, so like Sir said that yes, this is your attitude. So if you have that positivity with you that yes, you can survive that. I survived that thing, I survived that coma, that means that I'm going to live. And this is the life which I have to live. So now this is up to me. That do I want to be that kind of a person who's always whining and cribbing that I have to do this and that. So since I'm a very social person, I go out, I eat out, I dine out, I travel. And what I do is that I take my insulin shot right during my flight, and that makes people curious about that, what's he doing.
Right.
But this is just my attitude to
So
live
in other
with.
words, you are in control and the disease is not controlling you.
Exactly. This
That,
is the right
that is
approach
one
towards
of the
it.
one
Yeah.
of the main things I think that
is.
we want to tell our viewers is that, okay, you have this problem, you're a diabetic, but the thing is that now you have a choice. Are you going to let it ruin your life, or are you going to be in control?
Exactly.
So I
So
think,
true.
yeah,
So
and,
true.
and what Dr. Habib said, the defeatist attitude,
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference.
It makes sense, exactly, it does. So as I was mentioning it to you that I'm a director of programs of a social support group that's all charity based. So we have different programs under that headship. So one is to prove people that no matter what, you can still survive, you can still live a better life, and how to improve life despite of having diabetes. So last year on World Diabetes Day, we had a scuba challenge, and that was going to Cherna Island. We went there, we monitored our sugar levels, we had hypo kits and everything with us. And it was something worth doing completely. Why?
Right,
Because
right.
it gives you that positivity that yes, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yes, being a diabetic, I am vulnerable to a lot of things, maybe to psychological issues or to physiological issues. But what next? Still, I have to keep going. Still, I have to do something really good in my life. So that thing has genuinely helped me. So if someone is watching me who's a type 1, so totally I would like to tell you people that this is something you can easily survive. So just be that kind of, that warrior kind of attitude is what we need.
Again, it's all about the attitude.
yeah, it
So
is.
scuba diving, tell us a bit about that. How was that for you?
Okay, it was a wonderful experience. Initially, I was actually
Sounds
scared.
pretty daunting, you know.
Exactly. So I was like, what if I'm going to experience hypo when I'm inside? So
Okay.
I was like, let's just do it and let's just find out. So we follow the international standards.
All right.
I think till morning, till the evening.
How deep was the water that you were in?
I think it was around 50 feet easily.
Okay.
So we had that guy with us who was our trainer.
All right.
So we received a proper training, and then we were monitoring our sugar levels. We had a doctor with us. So we followed all the instructions internationally given for type 1s, especially for such kind of challenges.
Right.
So this year we are up to something else, something really
Fantastic.
big. So I think that gives you that boost,
Oh,
that
yes,
confidence.
definitely.
Yeah, so-
Because of the inclusion as well.
Yeah.
When you are able to relate to other people who are going
Exactly.
through the same
Yeah,
thing
and-
as well.
And that is the actual spirit of having a support group around you, just to encourage and show you that if we can do it, you can do it too.
Absolutely. Yes, that's fantastic. Dr. Habib, you mentioned a mini stroke. What are the symptoms of that, and how many times does it go unnoticed?
Actually, most people don't even notice what happened. And sometimes we see a patient where the family feels that there is a decline in the intellectual function.
Okay.
And apparently there is no paralysis of one hand or foot or no impairment of speech. But because these are the typical signs of stroke, suddenly the face becoming asymmetric or the speech becoming abnormal or a hand or foot, becoming paralyzed or numb. So none of these things happen, but there is a very perceptible decline in the intellectual and cognitive function. And
something that the family will be able to, register that they look different,
see that.
they feel different.
And what turns up is that on a CT scan or an MRI scan, you see that there were small, tiny areas, small, tiny infarcts or affected or damaged areas, and that is what accumulates to it.
Right.
Let me quickly mention another thing. Technology has really, in the past decade or so, management of diabetes has made big strides.
Right.
Even in type 1 diabetes, the patient had to stick their fingers several times a day to monitor the sugars. Now there's a patch that you apply, and there's the gadget that constantly monitors the blood level of sugar. So you don't have to be sticking. It's a very painful
Is that
thing.
available in Pakistan?
It is available. However, the trouble with all technology, and maybe through your program I can make this appeal to whosoever is related, the whole profession,
Definitely.
the engineers, the innovators. If a patch is going to cost you $200, how many people are going, and that's for 6 months, and then you replace it. How many people are going to afford it
exactly.
in this economy?
Yeah.
Our neighboring country has made so many discoveries. We are equally capable of working on these innovations, making them affordable for our society.
Absolutely.
Because these are not minor improvements. They are totally drastic,
Life-changing.
They are life-changing.
Yeah, life-changing, absolutely.
So you can do that, and you will see that for an active person, somebody who has a very busy lifestyle, you can just lead a perfectly normal life with these technologies.
Absolutely.
And we have to access those. We have to develop these locally. We cannot be begging developed countries to have mercy on us. We have the capability, we have the scientific wherewithal. We need to get going with that.
We need to take back that power.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, then that
exactly.
assertiveness, exactly.
So I would just like to add another point to it. Yes, that patch is actually it lasts for like 2 weeks only.
2 weeks,
It costs around 7,000 to 8,000, I believe.
For one patch?
Yeah, for one. And that is
Okay.
only for 2 weeks. So that means that if you're going to have that patch for a month, which is actually very nice for someone who has diabetes, why? Because it can tell you easily that at what time sugar levels are fluctuating and how to manage it actually.
Right.
So the thing is that we need to have such things, like sir said, in our country. We need people who can work in this field or someone who can raise his voice that we need to have that check. Insulin prices are going higher and a lot of other things are happening here, sugar strips and all that cost, even consultation charges and a lot of things.
True,
So yes,
absolutely.
with diabetes, someone who has it, it means that they have to spend a lot of money to take care of themselves. So we
Yes,
need to work on such
absolutely.
fronts too.
And as Dr. Habib was saying, we hope that the relevant people are watching this program, and through this, they can also, think about this, because the first thing, of course, is to be thinking across a set of lines, and that's when you take the next step. So let's hope that somebody who is related to this is watching this, and this is something we need to be developed in Pakistan so that it can reach the common man. Okay, Dr. Habib, when we were talking about the arteries as well, what damages are caused by diabetes? It's blockages and also the wearing down of arteries, or what?
Well, inflammation is a technical word, but it is, I would translate it simply by saying that irritation of tissues is inflammation. So whether
Okay.
it is chemically mediated or there are some physical things that uh, uh, go and affect an area. So arteries are very delicate, and arteries are all over the body. The inner cells of the arteries, they get inflamed. Something inflames them. Something irritates them. As a result, uh, different blood components like platelets can stick to the inside of an artery. Fat gets deposited. Calcium gets deposited. So, in layman's term, we say there is hardening of arteries.
Okay.
The arteries begin to get narrowed.
Right.
And when it reaches a certain point, when there is a sudden blood clot formation in an artery, it shuts off. So if that's an artery of the heart, heart attack is
Okay.
the acute symptom
Right.
or the result. Similarly, if an artery of the brain is blocked, there is stroke.
Right.
So this is what happens with the arteries. You know, there's a lot of debate on whether or not high cholesterol is responsible or not. But the end result is very obvious because when we do an angiogram, the artery is, in a layman's term, badly chewed up.
Oh.
And it's not just one place where there is a deposit of the fat. It's throughout the artery. So what we are fixing is just one place that we can get to.
Okay.
You know, but let me just say a couple, three things that are important here. Number one, you know, we're talking about prevention and lifestyle.
Yeah.
I was watching a cricket match last week, and there were two things which, after every over, there was repeated this thing several times between the overs, maybe 7, 8 times. One was a little kid popping a candy. Okay, bad start, let me say. Okay, so there are 100 overs in a one-day match. So after every over, you show it 6 to 10 times, and there are millions of kids watching this.
True.
So here is something very desirable, you know,
Right.
very attractive. Pop a candy. No consequences. Nothing will happen.
True.
And right after that, I guess the cola company was probably also manufacturing the candies. Right after that, the cola commercial. Now we know that there are about 6 to 9 teaspoons of sugar in a
True,
can or bottle of cola.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever cola it is. So, and the alternative that the other sweetener that they put in is no good either. So
The artificial sweeteners.
we are, you know, I want to say, as a society,
Yeah.
and you know what Dr. Anam is bringing up, and you said somebody will. Who is that somebody? The advocacy groups, you know, the professionals, people who treat diabetes. It is their responsibility.
Right.
The associations, advocacy groups, they get after it, and we have to generate a platform where we address how to resolve it, how to resolve this sugar assault.
That's
You
so
know,
true.
We
And-
were in the cardiology meeting. Nisar Mehman Saab was a Minister of Information then, and I have thanked him after that when I ran into him recently. The Cardiology Society said, please stop the cigarette commercials on PTV. And he said, I promise. And he did that immediately. You know, we have to, these unhealthy habits,
Absolutely.
unhealthy
Yeah.
food.
Responsible advertising.
We have to address that. We cannot just pretend that everything is fine and dandy.
That is so true, because you know, exactly what you're saying is that once you have put a message forward, be it your electronic media, be it your print media, and media is a huge, you know, a huge platform where you are influencing and you are shaping the minds of so many people. Yeah, absolutely right there. Media needs to be responsible as well. In fact, this is a whole part of patriotism as well. When we're talking about, Quaid-e-Azam Day, or days where we remember the founders of Pakistan, the great poet of Pakistan, and so many other people who have worked for this country, this is also being patriotic, that you are being mindful of creating a healthy nation, because a healthy nation will then be able to contribute in that way. And, as you were saying, it's first of all telling everyone that this is something that is harmful for you.
Yeah.
And once you say that again and again and again repeatedly, it's going to strike a nerve somewhere.
Because that is a matter of personal choice, I believe. Like we have often conducted such kind of awareness sessions, like I mentioned. So I think almost on weekly basis, we are having sessions in different schools just to tell people what to eat, what not to eat, and healthy lifestyle, and such kind of things are not good for your health. But the point is that you cannot control someone. You can only educate them. You can tell them, see, having this thing isn't so healthier for you, or you should have some other options. Go for fruits, go for fresh juices instead of going for such colas. But yet again, this is a matter of personal choice. So yes, as a nation, we need to have that thing. We need to develop that habit towards healthy lifestyle, that we need to be active. We have to leave our mobiles and go out for walks.
Right.
So rather than staying at home, and if you're even dining out, look for options which are good for you.
Yeah.
Like you can find salads and soups and a lot of other things. And even then, if you want to have junk food, so yes, maybe you can have it once a month. So personal choice is very important. So what we can do for that, and what we are already doing as a organization, is educating people.
True.
And yes, for advocacy, I'm also working on few projects where we can tell or communicate that we need to reduce the prices, we need to introduce some healthy lifestyle options too. So yes, we are working on some similar grounds, but yes, a lot of work still has to be done.
Okay, a question for you, Adam. You know, once, it's because it's human nature, even if you didn't like a particular food at a certain time, the minute somebody tells you, you're not to eat this, oh my God, you know, then you are just you're
addicted
just
to
yearning for that, and you're screaming yourself, I have to have that. How do you, you know?
How do I control?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I control my cravings for meetha, or like it's the winter season and gajar ka halwa and pete ka halwa and a lot of other things? So yes, I do try them, but I try that portion control. Then there's another thing which we call it carb count, that is carbohydrate count. So the point is that carb count is going to help you. You know that how much insulin do you exactly need for this much of carb. So
okay, right now I'll get back to your answer. Right now we're going for a break. Okay. Stay with us, don't change the channel.
Young girls in the beautiful valley of Kashmir sing and dance to the soft and lyrical music. Please enjoy the Kashmiri dance.
Welcome back to the program. We're talking about the impact of diabetes on the heart and mind, and we've had a fantastic conversation where we've been able to learn from our experts about so many things, so many myths and facts sorted out and what a person should do, because sometimes the information is a bit overwhelming. Okay, now, and if I say to you, it's sort of a family disease, isn't it? I mean, just because, one person in the family has diabetes or is a diabetic, I don't think that they should be, if you think of a management as a sort of a psychological management, if that person is singled out and you're cooking the same things that they should not be eating and everything's there for them, well, it's going to make it harder for them. So it's sort of a family approach should be, installed. So how would you advise?
Okay. So I would suggest that if someone you have in your family, especially if there is your child who's diabetic, so yes, of course, he cannot resist a chocolate. He cannot resist something, a birthday cake maybe. So rather than that you're suggesting him to not to eat, let him eat with a portion control, but like we were talking about with carb count, that you need to count that, for example, if he or she is having some junk food, even some snacks or something. So every single packet, you're going to have the detail that how many carbs are there in that chips or crisps or whatever it is. So try to learn that carb count thing. So for example, if you're taking out your child to a birthday party, so let him or her please whatever he wants to eat. Why? Because otherwise that is going to be irritating and devastating for your child. So let him eat and you do the carb count and give him that right amount of insulin which he needs. So that is the right approach. We don't educate people that this is something, the right diet to be taken by a diabetic. Yes, you can go for something which is a low carb food. But yet again, there are researches which are saying that even if you're going for a low carb food for a longer period of time, so there are some other complications for that too. So try to keep a balance, like eat what you want to eat. Maybe in a while you can go for junk food too. I do junking too. But again, I need to know the right amount of carbohydrates. I need to know how much insulin do I need. And I need to monitor my sugar levels too. So for example, I'm going to have gajar ka halwa when my sugar levels are like 350 plus. So you can imagine that how devastating that could be for my body. So that means that first of all, I have to take the correction dosage. I have to bring my sugar levels down. And then maybe I can have a smaller portion of gajar ka halwa, again taking that extra dosage to compensate that thing. So it's all about how you manage it. So monitoring your sugar levels, learning how to carb count things, which you can easily do. There are different apps. On your gadget, on your mobile, you can have everything. For example, how do I do it? I Google it. Then how many carbohydrates are in one gulab jamun? And they even give you that size, that if it's a ping pong size, then there are this much of carbohydrates. So this is how you're going to do it. So you cannot restrict yourself. I cannot restrict myself that I cannot eat this. That is definitely going to bring someone depression and anxiety.
You're setting yourself up for failure, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
If you talk about that. We also have on the morning show, we have a lifestyle segment as well, where we have a nutritionist who's also telling people. So I think, this is something that is a joint effort.
Exactly.
Many people coming together on the sort of the family level as well, and every place that you can to, bring this awareness forward.
And one thing, my friends has really helped me. Like what they do now is that it's not just me who's going to do the carb count. They do that same too. So they're not type 1s, but just to support me. So this is what you can do at your home. Maybe your father, your mother, your other siblings. So rather than making fun of someone or belittling someone, this is the right attitude which we need to have for people with type 1s.
Absolutely. Dr. Habib, we were talking about the arteries being blocked and other blockages that occur because of being diabetic. What about acute blockages? What is the treatment then available for patients?
A very pertinent question. Excuse me. Actually, what happens is when an artery of the heart gets blocked, there's going to be heart attack. And when an artery of the brain is blocked, within minutes, there's going to be brain damage and stroke. Modern technology has made it possible to quickly open the arteries. So somebody's having a heart attack, you give them a clot buster injection, and that is available across the country. There are so many centers in district headquarter and Tehsil headquarter hospitals where Now we have trained thousands of cardiology specialists. Pakistan is very blessed in that regard. And they are reaching out to far corners of the country.
Okay.
So they are available and these treatments are available. So somebody is having symptoms and they need to recognize that heaviness, pressure, tightness, pain going to the arm or jaw, you know, it could mean a heart attack, and you have to quickly seek the treatment. Don't wait.
Right.
Because the sooner that artery opens up,
The less
in
damage.
bigger, in bigger cities, there are many centers now where they would quickly do an angiogram and they will open up the artery with a balloon or stent or, you know, doing an angioplasty. In spite of all the negative publicity and the bad rap that, you know, these things have gotten in the recent past, this is the miracle treatment which is available in our country at so many centers of excellence. So people, especially who are educated, they need to become aware about the availability of these treatments. Same way with stroke.
Right.
You know, you get a medicine that breaks up the clot, opens up the artery, and that preserves the brain function. So it prevents disability, devastating and totally crippling disability, because it is not just that an arm or leg is weak. You know, that person loses memory,
Right.
does not know what is going on. So these treatments are available. But, you know, I just wanted to touch upon that. People need to be aware of it. Wherever communities that they live in, there should be an emergency evacuation system, this 1122 ambulance service, and we need to strengthen it and make sure that people get to the centers where treatments are available. But let's go back to the issue of prevention. That is more important.
Yeah.
You know, I'll take a cue from the surgery of what is called sleeve gastrectomy. They staple or remove a part of the stomach. This is done in people who are morbidly obese, you know, which is threatening their life.
Right.
And what we witness is that their metabolic syndrome is reversed. Their diabetes actually disappears. You know, that sugar levels are normal.
Right.
And this does not have to be done just with surgery. We can reverse diabetes with a very, very aggressive lifestyle change. I've seen people, you know, in my own practice over the decades.
Right.
I have met people who have lost like 150 or 200 pounds of weight, you know, and it was willpower.
Right. Willpower,
You know,
exactly.
somebody
Getting
is-
your mind around it, understanding what your enemies are, and to actually make friends with yourself, I think is the
Exactly,
main
yeah.
thing. Because once
True.
you start
about
respecting
loving yourself.
and your body, and you know, and understanding that it's you who's determining your health, you will then be able to regain control and be empowered. Okay, just before we go, unfortunately, we've run out of time for the program. A quick message for our viewers, Dr. Habib, from you first.
Change your lifestyle.
Right.
That's it.
okay. Fantastic. So simple. So simple. Anam?
All right, so for all the people out there, if you're a type 1, so we have a support group that is Meethi Zindagi. You can find us on Facebook. We have a website and a lot of things. Please get connected. The purpose is that if I can do it, you can do it too. So try to be a warrior. Never try to be a sufferer or someone who's being victimized. So it's all about your attitude. Stay positive and you'll start seeing difference in your life.
Right, that's fantastic. Dr. Habib and Anam, thank you very much for joining us on today's program. And I'm sure the viewers have had lots of information that we have been able to gain from you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and with that, we come to the end of today's program. A very, very informative one. I certainly learnt a lot. It is all about your attitude. It is all about having those reality checks and to understand that we are in control of what we are doing to ourselves. So why not make yourself your own best friend? Until next week, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.